I used to think silence kept the peace, that if I stayed calm long enough, they'd eventually see me for who I was, not for what they decided I should be. But years of polite smiles and quiet humiliation can hollow a person out in ways no one notices. Last Thanksgiving, I sat at that same table, listening as they praised each other's successes, speaking around me like I was furniture. When my name came up, my father laughed and said, "Odette's always been practical. She keeps things simple." Everyone nodded. No one looked at me. Something inside me cracked then, not loud, not visible, just a clean, final break. Because I realized peace built on erasure isn't peace at all. So this time, I won't sit quietly while they measure my worth by what they can understand. They don't know it yet. But the next time they look down on me, the ground under them will shift. The call came just after sunrise, when the desert air was still cool, and the light outside my kitchen window made everything look more honest than it really was. Tara's voice was bright, the way people sound when they're about to ask you for something they know you'll do anyway. She reminded me about our father's birthday brunch, Camelback Club, Sunday at 10:30 sharp, resort chic, no exceptions. Then came the familiar pause. That half-laugh she used when trying to make control sound like concern. "And Odette, don't bring anything strange this time. Dad doesn't like practical gifts." I could hear her smile through the line. I said only, "Practical works for me." That laugh again, light and dismissive. That's the problem. When the call ended, the silence felt heavier than before. I stared at the card lying on the counter, thin silver edges catching the morning light. The FAA emblem faint but unmistakable. My name, precise and small, curved along the bottom corner. Authorized by Regional Director O. Fisher. They would never understand what that meant. To them, it would look like something printed from an office supply store. But I knew better. I knew the weight of signatures, the power of clearances, the way certain doors opened only when the right name was written in the right ink. I slid the card into a plain leather folder and tucked it away. It wasn't the kind of gift that sparkled under chandeliers or drew applause over champagne. It wasn't meant to. Outside, the sky over Scottsdale stretched wide and unbroken, the kind of blue that dares you to believe it's endless. I'd learned long ago that even endless skies have boundaries. Lines no one sees, but everyone depends on. And as I watched a plane cut across that open expanse, I whispered to myself, almost absently, like a habit I'd never unlearned. The last time someone called me practical, 3 airports stopped moving. On my command. There are jobs where, if you do everything right, no one ever knows you existed. Mine is one of them, from a control center that hums 24 hours a day. I oversee the sky, stretching from Texas to California, thousands of flights moving through invisible corridors. I sign off on reroute or shut down when lives hang in the balance. Every decision bears the quiet weight of consequence, yet no one beyond those walls ever sees my hand in it. To my father, I'm just the woman with a desk job at some airport. He's never asked what kind of work that really means. Tara once joked that I should take a night class, maybe learn something useful, like how to check luggage properly. I laughed, because telling her the truth would only make her laugh harder. It's easier to let people stay comfortable in their small definitions. But I remember the night everything changed. Daniel was flying a training sortie over Tucson, one of those golden Arizona evenings when the sky feels endless and merciful. Then came the call. A systems failure. The F-16 never made it back. They told me the words they tell every pilot's family, practiced and polished until they sound merciful instead of mechanical. I stood at the edge of the runway as the horizon dimmed, the desert air heavy with jet fuel and silence. Somewhere up there, the sky that took him still shimmered the way it always had, utterly indifferent. That night, I made a promise, not to Daniel, not even to myself, but to the air that had swallowed him whole. I would make sure no one else fell because of neglect. No one else disappeared into paperwork and excuses. I left the engineering firm we'd both worked for and entered the FAA. It wasn't glamorous, but it was purpose, and purpose has its own gravity. Over the years, I climbed, first a systems engineer, then manager, until my name began appearing on documents stamped federal authorization required. No one in my family knew. I preferred it that way. Forced respect feels worse than silence. Silence, at least, is honest. 3 weeks before my father's birthday, I was signing off an airspace restriction request when his words floated back to me. Give me something of value, Odette, not one of your bureaucratic souvenirs. So I did. I drafted another form, an internal authorization few outside my office would ever see. Skyline Lounge lifetime access, approved for Mr. Charles Fisher, the kind of clearance you can't buy, trade, or replicate. It's not even technically a gift. It's an access privilege reserved for those with a direct tie to federal command. I printed the card on cream stock edged in silver, embossed with the twin-wing FAA seal. It wasn't beautiful in the commercial sense. No shimmer, no polish, no marketing gloss, just quiet authority. I slid it into a pale leather folder. No ribbon, no fancy box. My initials at the bottom corner were enough. He wouldn't recognize its worth. I knew that. But someone would. Aviation runs on codes, signals, acknowledgments, patterns that only make sense to those trained to read between frequencies. Everything I've ever done depends on that truth. And maybe this time, I wasn't just managing the sky. Maybe I was managing perception. I sealed the envelope, smooth and deliberate, the way I do before issuing a flight directive. Then, I placed it in my briefcase and let the thought settle like calm air before a storm. If they refuse to listen, I thought, then I'll make them witness. I pulled into the Camelback Club parking lot at 10:58, 2 minutes early. Punctuality? To me, isn't habit. It's structure. The Arizona sun reflected off rows of polished Porsches and BMWs. My silver hybrid looked misplaced among them. A quiet car in a loud world. Inside. Tara was already laughing with my father's friends, her voice bright and rehearsed. Evan stood near the window, swirling a Bloody Mary, talking loudly about his latest deal in Palm Springs. When I approached, Tara glanced at her watch. Still running on airport time, huh? Being on time is respect, I said. Evan smirked. For you, everything's about rules. Guess that's why you stayed in government work. I let it pass. I'd heard worse, 10 years ago. He told me I'd never make it anywhere if I didn't take risks. I took bigger ones than he'll ever understand. At the table, my father sat at the head, glowing with the kind of pride that feeds on admiration. Tara sat beside him, Evan opposite. I took my usual place, center, edge of relevance. Evan began the gift ritual with a flourish, a black case containing a restored Porsche key, for the man who taught me luxury. Laughter followed. Then Tara presented her Tiffany box. Something timeless, like you. Inside, a gold Rolex. More laughter, more approval. When it was my turn, I slid a small cream envelope across the table. No bow, no logo. Happy birthday, Dad. He opened it, scanning the card, his smile dimming into confusion. Skyline Lounge access authorization. Then, amusement. A restaurant gift card? How practical. The table laughed. Tara murmured. So you, Odette, Evan added. Always the sensible one. I said only, hope you'll use it someday. Then quiet. Humiliation used to sting. Now it just pressed against me like cabin pressure before turbulence. Predictable, controlled. I sat still, calm as a pilot waiting for clearance, letting their laughter fade into background noise. They didn't realize silence can be strategy. 10 minutes later, a waiter stopped beside my father, holding the same cream folder. Sir, he said, I'm sorry to interrupt. My father frowned. Already annoyed, yes? The young man stood too straight for a restaurant server. His eyes flicked to me. Recognition, Caleb Morton, once a radar tech under my command at Sky Harbor. Ma'am, are you Director Fisher? I nodded. Yes. He turned to my father. Sir, this isn't a restaurant gift card. It's a federal access pass issued only by FAA regional directors. There are 10 in the country. Your daughter is one of them. The room froze. Evan's drink stopped midair. Tara blinked. My father stared, trying to process. You! What? Caleb's tone stayed steady. Director Fisher oversees all controlled airspace west of Texas, every flight crossing Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and Colorado passes through her authority. A glass fell somewhere and shattered. You run airports? My father whispered. No. I run the sky above them. Tara's phone was already out. Dad. She's in the news. Odette Fisher, appointed regional director, FAA Southwest Region. It's from last year. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Caleb placed the folder back on the table. Careful. Respectful. Apologies, sir. I thought you should know. Then he walked away, posture perfect, steady. The silence that followed was heavier than any insult I'd ever endured. My father leaned back, voice barely there. You control the airspace, all that matters, I said. And for the first time in my life, they finally understood what it meant when I said nothing. Silence pressed down on the table, dense and heavy, like the air before a storm. My father leaned forward, elbows on the table, forcing a smile that trembled at the edges. So, what does that mean, exactly? You supervise airports? Before I could answer, Caleb, still standing a respectful distance away, spoke in that calm, steady tone I'd heard countless times in control rooms. Sir, she authorizes federal airspace operations. When Air Force One lands west of Texas, her office clears the corridor. The sound in the room changed. It didn't vanish. It just shifted, thinned. Every eye turned toward me. Evan gave a weak laugh, trying to recover the rhythm. So you're, like, the HR department of the sky? Caleb turned his head slowly, eyes cool as tempered steel. No, sir. She's the one who can ground your private jet mid-air if she deems it unsafe. The words hit like turbulence. No one spoke. Tara's hand went to her chest. Her breath stuttered. My father lowered his cup of coffee, his new Rolex glinting under the light. You shut down airspace? You can do that? Only when lives depend on it, I said quietly. The air conditioner hummed. The only sound left. Evan finally exhaled, trying for humor. Wow. Guess you've been busier than we thought. You never thought, I said. It wasn't loud, but it landed like a fault line opening. My father's hands tightened, knuckles pale, the tick of his Rolex echoing faintly against the table. One last symbol of control in a room where control had shifted. Tara's phone glowed in her hand. Her voice shook. Dad, she testified before the Senate. Here, FAA Regional Director Odette Fisher speaks on national airspace reform. It's from C-SPAN. The second silence was colder than the first. You testified before Congress? My father asked, his voice small. Yes. They asked about crisis management during wildfires. And you didn't tell us? Would you have listened? The question cut clean through the air. No anger, no accusation, just truth. The kind that doesn't explode but expands, filling every corner until no one can breathe comfortably. For the first time in years, I saw it clearly. Their world of cars and watches and applause shrinking beneath the weight of what they'd never cared to see. Evan was the first to move, his pride jolting him upright. All right, impressive title, sis. But let's be honest, you make it sound like you're running NASA. I rested my hand lightly on the table. Evan, when planes stray into restricted airspace. I get the call, not NASA. My father looked between us, eyes flicking like he was trying to refocus after years of blindness. The truth was sinking in, slow, painful, unstoppable. Tara tugged gently at his sleeve, desperate to change the subject, but it was already too late. A new voice broke in behind us. The restaurant manager, dark suit, Camelback Club pin, approached with polite authority. Director Fisher, we didn't realize you were on today's reservation. Had we known, we would have offered the aviation suite. The table turned as one. Evan's face drained of color. Tara froze, her hand still on our father's arm. My father forced a laugh, thin and uneasy. There's an aviation suite? Yes, sir, the manager replied. It's where we host visiting officials from Luke Air Force Base, or the FAA. The silence afterward wasn't awkward, it was reverent, as if the ground itself had shifted. Tara's cheeks flushed red. Evan's eyes dropped to his half-empty glass. No need, I said softly. The regular table is fine. The manager nodded, retreating. My father rubbed his forehead, voice almost a whisper. I never thought you'd be this important. I looked at him, steady. I never needed to be important. I just needed to be good. Evan gave a brittle laugh, trying to turn the moment into something lighter, something survivable. All this time, we thought you were, what, a scheduler? Not wrong, I said. I schedule skies. His smile faltered. Tara spoke then, her voice trembling as if her own words burned her. I once told people you were an airport secretary. That's fine, I said evenly. I just sign the clearances they fly under. The words hung there, quiet, sharp, undeniable. Outside, a commercial jet cut through the open blue, leaving a clean white contrail against the sky. The sunlight caught my father's face, and he closed his eyes for a moment, as if realizing how long he'd spent staring only at the ground. The room was still heavy from the sound of Director Fisher. My father sat slumped, fingers interlocked as if holding himself together. Tara's mascara streaked down her cheeks. Evan stared at his untouched drink, his voice gone. I stayed still. Years in control rooms had taught me, never move during turbulence. Wait for the pressure to settle. At last, my father whispered, his voice unsteady. Odette, why didn't you ever tell us? Because you never asked. Dad, we just thought, you thought I was beneath you. It wasn't anger, just truth vibrating in the air until no one could escape it. Tara's lips trembled. We didn't mean to. You did. But it's fine. You needed to believe success looked like you. I turned my glass, watching the water steady. You measured value by what you could see. Cars, houses, names. I just chose a different altitude. My father's shoulders shook. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. You sound like your mother. I froze. Her voice came back to me. If they won't listen, make your silence undeniable. He swallowed hard. I was proud of you. I just never knew how to say it. You didn't have to, I said. You just had to see. The brunch dissolved into a silence that no one dared to break. Plates were cleared, chairs shifted, yet no one stood before I did. The air itself felt suspended, as if even gravity was waiting for permission to move again. I gathered my things slowly. The Skyline access card still lay on the table, its silver edge catching the light, reflecting faintly against my father's wrist. He stared at it for a long time before sliding it toward me. I don't deserve this. I pushed it back. You do. Your family. He hesitated, eyes searching mine. Would I even be allowed in? Yes. With the card, you'll be on my clearance list. The words landed softly, but they carried a deeper weight. He wasn't just being granted access to a facility, but to a part of my life he'd never cared to enter. For the first time, he looked at me like someone who finally saw the sky he'd ignored his whole life. He nodded, voice rough. Then, maybe, one day, I'll visit. If you'll have me, you already do. Dad, you always did. Evan spoke next, his usual confidence stripped away. Odette, I'm sorry. I didn't know. That's the thing. Evan, you could have, if you'd wanted to. Tara reached for my hand, eyes wet. I was awful. The way I talked about you, about your life. You don't owe me words, I said gently. Just change your tone the next time someone's quieter than you expect. No one replied. My father picked up the card again, studying the signature etched at the bottom. Oh, Fisher. He took a deep breath, as if tasting air thinner and purer than he'd ever breathed before. That afternoon, I drove back toward Phoenix. The highway stretched wide and empty beneath the late sun, the desert glowing in muted gold. The hum of the hybrid engine blended with the soft rush of air, a quiet rhythm that matched my pulse. For once, there was no pressure, no static in my head, just stillness. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A message from Tara. I looked up when a plane passed today. For the first time, I thought about who keeps them safe. Thank you, Odette. A second one followed from my father. I'll use the card next month. Maybe you can show me the control tower? I smiled, but didn't reply. Some words are meant to linger, not to be answered. Ahead, the faint outline of Phoenix Sky Harbor shimmered in the heat. Runway lights blinked like low stars, and far above them, silver contrails crisscrossed the sky. Each line a decision, a voice, a heartbeat I had guided from the ground. I slowed the car, letting the wind spill in through the cracked window. It carried the scent of dust and sun-warmed asphalt, the kind of air that feels earned. My mother's voice surfaced, soft and steady. If they won't listen, make your silence undeniable. Now, I finally understood. Silence wasn't surrender. It was command. Looking up, I whispered, altitude isn't about height, it's about perspective. Then I drove on. Behind me, Phoenix dissolved into light. Ahead, the sky opened wide, calm, vast, and entirely mine.